The Northtown News Magazine is brought to you in part by eVoter. eVoter is proud to be a sponsor of the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go back to that lemon light city? Sweet.
Hi there, I'm the real Marty Levinson, and thank you all for listening to the Northtown News Magazine with Sonny Hirsch, our cameraman, and the greatest host around.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers here, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of my entire technical crew, although not today quite so, Sonny Hirsch, and unfortunately you're going to have one camera shot the whole show. We'll try to be as creative as we can. The information will be every bit as entertaining. I'll be on my better behavior not to lean out of the screen. Sonny had to tend to some family stuff, so unfortunately he's going to be here later tonight afterwards, but anyway, we want to wish everybody all the best over there. We're real big on community policing, which he is the chairman of the 24th District Community Policing, caps24.org. Think it's a terrific thing to get involved with the police and all the rest of it. Also, we're real big on Court Watch, as long as we're going to be talking to somebody about courts and stuff later. And I know it's no surprise now because you're seeing both of us on the screen at the same time. Our website at www.ntnm.org, over 100,000 shows watched, and in the first 40 days of 2010, over 10,000 shows watched. You people are out of your minds. Either that or the networks really are having trouble programming. So, but thank you so much. That we appreciate. Our next guest has been on before. He's somebody you don't see that often, but somebody whose opinion is very important, especially when it comes to judicial matters. He ran for judge once. I'd like to see him run again. When he ran, he definitely had more. He's the one who taught me about things like looking at bar association ratings and looking at certain stuff about, qualifications. He actually helped me start, in part, like a panel of people who advise me for these things. And I still managed to put my foot in my mouth, like the recent email about Steve Bernstein, and I want to apologize publicly for that one. Even though those sentiments are very real from my standpoint, I never should have sent that to anybody other than the individual that sent me the email. That was just me being stupid at the moment. But I'm in public. I say stupid things on the show all the time. Why can't I say stupid things on email? I do my best. In any event, I want to introduce you to somebody who's very highly regarded in the legal community, somebody who'd make an absolutely great judge, somebody with more highly qualified than I think that anybody ran in the 9th Sub-Circuit this time, Michael Strom. Michael, how you doing?
I'm good, Avi. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Now, one of the things I've learned from you is first of all, it's like there's a whole world out there that people don't comprehend. It's called the judicial system. Okay, and you actually participate in this.
I do. It's
tell us about your work first.
Well, I've done what's known as civil litigation for mostly for insurance companies, private businesses, and such for essentially my whole career. I've been doing this for 32 years, and the good thing is it's had me in the courthouse just about every day for all of those 32 years.
Now let's talk about what is litigation.
Well, there are a lot of people who are fond of calling themselves trial attorneys who would probably pass out if they actually had to try a case. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on before they put jurors in the box and you tee that thing up and go at it. Cases that I handle, which tend to be in the law division, the larger value cases, although it's much better than the bad old days where it took 7 years to get from case filed to case over.
Wow.
The circuit court's done a number of different things that have cut that way down, and you can get a case to trial if everybody's ready to do so in probably a year and a half. You can, and if it takes more than 3 years, you've got a gun to your head and you better get going.
But it's a lot better than 7 years.
Much. I mean, back in the old days, it was a miracle if the witnesses who actually saw anything, A, remembered it, B, were still living, C, could be compelled to get to a courthouse.
Yeah. Wow, that's tough. But, you're really talking about intricate stuff. I mean, in other words, you're talking about, you're talking about jury selection. You're talking about getting the case up there in the first place. You're talking about actually trying the case. Dealing with all these factors that are going to occur over the course of years. That if you're not familiar with this whole system, I just know in the few court watch things that we do. And by the way, if you want to join the court advocacy group of the 24th district, you should go to caps24.org. Email Sonny Hirsch over there. Because he's the chairman of court advocacy also. But that's different, and that's so complicated. But that happens almost right away, comparatively. That'll happen in weeks, months. But yeah, witnesses don't show. Things get prolonged. You get so many extensions and all the rest of it. But you're talking years.
Yeah. And over the course of those years, even the parties in the case can change dramatically. You can have a case that starts out with maybe 2 or 3 parties, and by the time you're in front of the jury, maybe you've got half a dozen.
Wow.
Sometimes more, and then some of them have settled out separately. It gets very complicated procedurally.
Mm. So basically, we've got, is it 11 bar associations in the area here?
11 or 12. I actually have the Alliance list
Yeah,
here.
the Alliance has 10 members. The Chicago Bar Association makes 11.
Yeah. I think you're right about that.
Okay. And so basically, you've got your choice between Pabst and Schlitz and Anheuser-Busch, and hopefully you're drinking better beer than that.
And it is amazing the variance that you can see in these ratings amongst all these different organizations. There are some that don't really differentiate all that much. A number of the organizations in the Alliance have only just basically a toggle switch, either recommended, not recommended, not highly regular, and get out of here, you shouldn't be a judge.
Yeah.
A bunch of them do have more. Actually, one of the things that I did when I was running, I didn't notice anybody doing it before then, but I would mention in my literature or on my website, if I got a recommended from an organization that didn't have a higher rating, I would have an asterisk and something that said highest rating.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing that now, because I think that a lot of people didn't even necessarily know which organizations only had the 2 levels of ratings. I would actually call to find out at that organization, how are your ratings? Is it 3-tier, 2-tier? How do you do it? So if I had recommended, but that's as high as they went, I want people to know that too.
Yeah. Now, I know from you that the Chicago Bar Association does a thorough evaluation of everybody.
Very thorough. They tend to be, and I apologize to my friends who are on the Judicial Evaluation Committee, that they do a very exhaustive job. They probably overall put the most work into it, but they have a very narrow band typically. They don't have that many people who they give that highly recommended to. They used to be pretty reluctant to go off the deep end on the bottom either. When I was researching the 9th Sub-Circuit races that occurred before I was foolish enough to run on my own, typically what I'd see is everybody was recommended, everybody was qualified, nobody was highly, nobody was not. So although it's nice information, it's pretty hard for the voter to make much of it.
Very hard. And those are for the few that actually care enough to check it out. And all of you people should be checking this out.
Well, you should, but I heard from indirectly, it's such hearsay I don't even want to cite the source, but it's somebody who is exceptionally skilled in politics, at least 2nd generation, if not 3rd, who estimates that the ratings are maybe 4%.
Really? Yeah. Wow. That's disheartening.
Oh, well,
of course, then again, I did see some of the results from the last election, so I should probably be realistic about it.
Well, Avi, to be honest, I've seen worse. This was not bad as far as that goes. I think 08 was worse in terms of the number of candidates who didn't even bother to submit their credentials for review who were elected.
Why would a candidate not submit his credentials?
Pretty easy. They know they're not going to get it no matter what. And one of the ways that you don't get it is if you have not had the years of service in law that they consider a minimum to be qualified to be a judge. Let's say the organization's view is 8 years or 10 years. Well, if you've only been a lawyer for 4 years, why go through the evaluation? You pretty much know where they're headed.
That's a very good point. And as if somebody told me a story, I don't know if it was you, about somebody who was actually head of a bar association who applied with less than the number of years that got not qualified and resigned from the bar association.
Ouch.
That is an ouch, and I wouldn't blame that person for being upset about that.
There are also some candidates.
Not that I agree. By the way, I do think high standards are a good thing. Let me make that clear. I didn't say that quite right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I've also been surprised about, and this is less common, but I've seen some candidates, and at least one who I know is an elected judge, who would only submit to the Chicago Bar and not to the Alliance. I don't really understand the thinking behind that, but you know, it's politics, and you make your own decisions.
Did that person actually get a good rating from the?
They got a qualified rating from the Chicago Bar, and figured that's it. I'm done.
I think that's interesting. If somebody doesn't go on one of them, I don't worry about it too much, because maybe, like if it's the ex-bar association, a lot of them are ethnic or whatever. I don't want to get into any specifics because I'll really put my foot in my mouth and I wear a size 14. It hurts. and I just did that on email. So anyway.
Incidentally, the one I'm thinking of, you endorsed in Jewish Chicago.
Interesting.
And he's a good judge too.
This is interesting. You'll have to tell me afterwards. I'm very curious.
Good fella. I actually know, as it turns out, a number of people who he went to law school with, and I got to be better acquainted with him. I like him as much as you do. Interesting.
Now I have to say that I've never cared more about the ratings than this year, because part of it is the process. I mean, when you first ran, I started getting familiar because you had all these highly qualifieds. Okay, but each year I start to look at them more, and when I see people with not highly qualified, and now I understand a little better. For instance, the kind of litigation that you're talking about would be considered like very desirable stuff. Okay,
kind of.
Okay,
because a lot of what some bar associations want to see is a variety of practice. Some bar associations would probably look at my record and say, and how many criminal cases have you handled, Mike? Well, that'd be a 0. They kind of frown on you taking criminal cases on the side if you're working with a civil practice firm.
Oh, that would be yeah. Didn't think about that one.
and now, for the last 13 years, I've been in-house working for a company. Well, they have exclusive rights to my legal services. Except when I give them to you pro bono, Avi.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, and I do appreciate that. And I want to tell you, and I hope the people out there appreciate it, because I don't invite just anybody. As a general rule, a candidate running for judge has to be recommended by somebody I know in order to come on the show. I did some NTNM extras in which actually there were people that were recommended and highly recommended, but there were some people on that show that had no recommendation whatsoever and did not seek bar association stuff. And actually sometimes before the fact somebody's recommended but chooses not to apply to the bar associations. I don't always know that in advance. They come out very late. As a matter of fact, the Alliance didn't come out till after early voting started.
It's very frustrating for a candidate because you're looking at some deadlines to get your literature done for your last push, and you would like to have those ratings, particularly if you're expecting them to be good. I think my last literature, there are maybe a couple of organizations that like me that I couldn't put on the literature because it just came out too late.
Yeah, I'd like them to be more cognizant. To me, it's fascinating too, and I'm going to try to find out specifics after the election. Why, for instance, there might be somebody who has 9 qualifieds, 1 didn't apply, then the Puerto Rican Bar Association didn't like them. Or let's say maybe everybody liked them but the LGBT. Or maybe everybody liked them but the Decalogue Society. I had to tell that joke. I'm Jewish, I can do that.
Now, one thing I'm not sure if you're aware of process-wise, Avi, is all of the organizations except the Chicago Bar Association have a pooled process. You don't interview separately with each of them. You go to a room and everybody's there from all of those 10 other organizations. You have one application that goes to the Alliance and is reviewed the same materials by all 10 organizations.
So in other words, they're all based on the same interview and the same application?
They are.
So I don't remember all the names, but I already said LGBT and Puerto Rican in Decalogue Society. I almost said Decadent again. I didn't. No, once is enough. Decalogue Society, and I know some of the ex-presidents of Decalogue Society, and I know a lot of the members of the Decalogue Society. But So they all have access to that same interview.
They do.
Interesting. But people have different grades.
And what you will also see, we're really getting inside baseball here, but
Yeah.
sometimes you will see one of the alliance organizations has an NE, not evaluated. By rule, if the person from that organization doesn't make it to the beginning of the interview, they can't issue a ruling. They can't issue
Which would
evaluation.
explain why that explains. That's interesting. I never knew that. And that is the inside baseball stuff. Thank you. See, by scratching here, I'm
There'll
saying
be
bunt
5
to the
other
third base
people that
line.
will be interested in this.
You'd be surprised. I have to tell you, what really shocked me is that whenever I went to any of these political events, and I wanted to go to more, I went to as many as I could. There's a limit to how many things I can go to, this political stuff, before the election. But if there was a judge there, I got on the radar. I mean, I think I did 20 separate judicial interviews before the election.
Well, the number of shows that you did, Avi, it's fantastic. And those of us who really think that the judicial candidates are essentially shut out of any journalism, any exposure, any evaluation. God love you, Avi. Northtown News Magazine is about the only show in town.
Thank you. Well, actually, you know what? I want to thank, and I didn't thank him enough, is Jack Lahane, who does the blog. And he's been on the show, and he puts when I put a show on with the judicial candidate, he always posts it there and has a link on there, and it's called For What It's Worth. It's a Buffalo Springfield song.
No, you got it right, Avi. He's one of the sources that I went to for some of the information.
And he was terrific too, because I was able to. He had a lot of the websites before I had them. So he actually helped me access a lot of these people, which was great. But I got approached by so many people, and I really tried. There were actually a couple people still a couple days before the election. Well, can I be interviewed? Well, I kind of think I already did everything. The show isn't exactly live. I'd like it to be. It just doesn't work out
Well, you did
from a
the
production
live
standpoint.
election
Well,
show.
that was pretty cool, as a matter of fact. Yeah, that was, and we had Michael Bender call in, as a matter of fact, who was somebody that I think he had 1 or 2 HQs, but mostly he had maybe 1. I don't remember. Well, you've got the ratings right.
I do. No need to guess.
Yeah. So
and by the way, I think the world of Mike Bender. He's a past president of Decalogue.
Yeah.
He's a personal friend of mine. He's a wonderful man, as is his dad, Jerry Bender.
Yeah, they're both terrific.
I have nothing but the highest regard for the both of them.
Actually, Michael was one of my top 2 people I wanted to see win more than anybody, and it's just a shame. And I think, you know what, in retrospect, I think that's a big reason I sent out that email I did. I can't believe he didn't win. Of course, there's a lot of politics.
Of course, by the end of this show, you'll know why.
Yes, as a matter of fact, and we're going to have to start switching to that pretty soon.
Mike Bender got highly recommended from Lesbian and Gay Bar Association of Chicago and from the Puerto Rican Bar Association.
Interesting. Okay. So those 2 guys, I like you. Puerto Rican LGBTs, we like you a lot. But not the Jewish one, interestingly enough.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of people figure, Decalogue Jewish candidate must be pretty sweet. They have a very transparent process, and you can look through their ratings and see that isn't how they do it.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, there was a president of one.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the board of managers for them.
Oh, okay.
But they have a highly regarded evaluation. I would be participating in it if I didn't want to support candidates on my own, because that's part of the rules. If you are even vaguely associated with a candidate's campaign, you cannot be on the evaluation committee.
See, I
not
like
just
that.
for that candidate, of any candidate.
In the words of Firesign Theater, that is a fair and wise guy rule by which to be ruled. So let's evaluate the 9th. I mean, I know you spent time on this, so let's talk about what you have.
Well, if we could, Avi, I want to start with the mega trends.
Please.
Because that's what we covered in the last show I was on after 2008.
Okay.
Is that show available on the web? Tell them about it.
Yes, absolutely it is. And as a matter of fact, write me and I'll give you the direct link. It's all available on YouTube. You got 10 minutes for all the evaluations. I'm going to shut up and listen to you.
Well,
and anytime you want me to chip in, I won't. But
every election, you have the potential for a theme, a title. There's a judicial election that was famously referred to as the Irish sweepstakes. Another one, Ladies' Day. There wasn't an official tag in 2008, but oh my goodness, did the female candidates do well. It was beginning to look like a trend that would make folks like myself an endangered species as a judicial candidate. If we have a theme this year, Avi, it's the boys are back in town.
Oh, okay.
And let me explain what I mean by that. In 2008, it was the most exceptional set of numbers I've ever seen, in that there were 25 races from the top of the judicial ballot down to the bottom, and there were 7 of 25 races where male candidates prevailed. And in 3 of those, there were no women in the race. So only 4 men in 21 races beat women.
Wow.
Daunting. And there are a number of factors that are traditionally looked at as really important things that help folks win. And I looked at that election from all of those standpoints. Were you slated? Did you have the first line on the ballot? Did the Tribune endorse you? And every single one of those criteria, women did better. That year, now there were more races that year than this year, but I had 18 slated candidates on that, and 11 of them won. There were 8 women who were slated. 6 of them won, 6 and 2. The men, 5 and 5. We had the first line of ballot, 25 races. There were 12 people who won with the first line of the ballot. But when you looked a little deeper, there were 14 women who were on the first line, 10 of them won. 11 men on the first line, 2 of them won.
Ooh.
So, is the first line of the ballot what's really driving any of these numbers? Same thing with the Tribune. 14 men, 11 women endorsed by the Tribune. This is again all 08. 11 women endorsed by the Tribune, 9 of them won. 14 men, 6 of them won. Very surprising to see those numbers turn around. But in 2010, there were 20 races, 13 men won. 11 of those men were those men who won their primaries had women in their race. And the number that is mind-boggling for people who've been looking at this over a period of time, races where there's one woman against a number of men, that's supposed to be gold. And I don't know that there's virtually nobody in 2008 that lost in that array. There were 8 races. No, I take it back. 9 races where there was one woman. Only one of those women won.
Wow.
And I have no particularly good explanation for that, as I seldom do, because as Avi knows, what I do is really more like the kind of the Bill James of political elections. I don't know how to play the game, but I know how to read the numbers. I can give you all the stats, I can give you all the numbers, and then at the end of the day, I got to tell you, I don't know. I don't understand it. The thing is, though, that what separates me from a lot of the mavens is I'm honest about it, and I'll tell you that I don't understand it.
And that's one of the reasons I've got him on the air right now, is because unlike most of the mavens, almost all of them, he is honest.
So the other mega trends were slated candidates. 5 of 9 slated candidates were successful. And I'm not, for these purposes, counting the 9th Sub-Circuit, where you have kind of sort of slating from the Democratic Party of Evanston, which, if we were counting that, it would be, so far, 1 and 1 would be, instead of 5 of 9, it would be 6 of 10,
Yeah.
depending on whether Judge
Well, 6
calls,
of 11.
No, 5 of 9. Oh, you're right. 6
Okay.
of 11. Numbers, and I'm supposed to be able to count. Anyway, Tribune, 12 of 20 endorsed by the Tribune were successful. I didn't see a particular pattern there,
Yeah.
male, female. So that's the big picture. But one of the big picture things that people look at a lot is the effect of turnout on party organizations, because the old traditional wisdom is that the Democratic organization in particular loves low turnout, because their people are going to get to the polling place even if you have to dig them out of a shallow grave and prop them up in the polling place. They don't do that anymore. Just kidding. Anyway, so if there's a low turnout, their people are going to get out. The other people won't. Should be good, right?
In theory, yes.
In theory, yes. So how come the percentages didn't get better this year? 5 of 9. 11 of 18, it's not significantly better.
In part, there's less, this much I can tell you, there's less precinct captains. Alderman Stone told me he went to 25 different polling places election day, and the committeeman, Ira Silverstein, only had people at 3 of them.
Well, the 50th ward is a whole other thing. There are wards that are perhaps a bit more aggressive and effective than the 50th, and we'll talk about some of them in a little bit too.
Sure.
Because, let's say the 11th ward, the 19th.
Right, that's your,
13th, those are wards that traditionally, there's a lot of voters there. Their turnout numbers are always high, and you would expect to see that the organization's doing something.
And they compromise about 75% of the city council workforce.
I didn't say it. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just here to talk about judicial.
And I'm not saying those numbers are exactly right either.
But I think one of the things that has changed from the good or bad old days, depending on how you feel about that sort of thing, is there's no such thing as a precinct captain who's got a problem with his boss if the judge lost.
Right.
The judicial elections it's not a big deal for the organization. I have friends who got the brass ring, got slated countywide, finished 4th, and were not real happy afterwards. But let me give you an example on how this plays out in some very selected races.
Sure.
The appellate court, you would think, if any of the judicial races are going to be significant, those should be significant because, as we all know from the rulings that we're seeing from the U.S. Supreme Court and recently from the Illinois Supreme Court, the appellate court judges have a lot to do with policy, in addition to calling balls and strikes, as the Chief Justice likes to put it.
Okay.
So let's see how that played out in, again, a race where lower turnout numbers. How much lower? I'm glad you asked, because I have that number. And this is not exceptionally extraordinary, because 2008 was not only a presidential election year, but a very hotly contested and high interest level presidential election. 2010, I don't want to pass judgment on the candidates that we've been voting on way up there at the top of the ticket and in between. Draw your own conclusions. But there was no Obama-McCain matchup going on there.
I have to ask you this right now. Do you want to go as far as we can right now and continue this again on next week's show?
However you like, Avi.
Let's do it. Okay, we've got about 1:18 for this show, and then we'll just say to be continued next week.
Okay.
Okay.
The turnout numbers, to give you an idea on just how much lower 2010 was, 2008, Cook County cast 585,449 ballots. 2010, the total was 367,161. So that's almost 220,000 fewer ballots, more than a third lower than last election.
Wow. Wow. That's quite a bit lower. Now, does that have to? It was not a presidential year this year, and it was a presidential year 2 years ago.
Right, and if you go back and look at some of the other non-presidential years, although people were really irate about how low the turnout was, it wasn't really that far out of line of other non-presidential years, and at least around these parts where we had a bit of inclement weather. I mean, that's driven turnout down since people have been voting.
Well, also, there's never been an election earlier than February 2nd. At this point, this is part one, because you know what, this to me is a fascinating topic, and I want this thing on tape. I don't get Michael Strom here that often. So tune in next week for part 2. Thanks entire technical crew, Sonny Hirsch, www.ntnm.org. Avi Myers, Michael Strom. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Avi.